Hi.
Greetings. We're in the chapter of the Pure Worship of Jehovah book entitled My Great Rage Will Flare Up. They've been dealing for the last 3 or 4 pages with the Armageddon scenario, and now they want to bring us back to the main point of this whole section of the book, which is Gog of Magog, 2 chapters, 38 and 39 in Ezekiel. And there's very little of that here, except the phrase Gog of Magog.
Yeah.
The rest is, well, we can only call it pure fantasy. And fantasy built on speculation, built on scriptures dragged in from all over the Bible, which they get to make a soup out of. So let's read the paragraphs first, and then I don't doubt we'll have something to say.
So I'm reading from the book. David's going to be reading from the screen. The subtitle here is, When Will Jehovah's Anger Flare Up? Jehovah has set a day for the final war. He knows in advance when the attack on his people will take place. How does Jehovah know when his enemies will attack? As we saw in the preceding chapter of this publication, Jehovah tells Gog, quote, I will, and then put hooks in your jaws, end of quote. He will lead the nations into a decisive conflict. This does not mean that Jehovah is the aggressor in this fight, nor does it mean that he takes away the free will of those who oppose him. Rather, it indicates that Jehovah can read hearts and know how his enemies will respond to a given set of circumstances.
If Jehovah does not start the conflict or force his opponents into battle, why will mere humans put themselves in a position where they will be fighting against the Almighty himself? One reason is that by this time in history, they will likely have convinced themselves either that God does not exist or that he will not intervene in human affairs. Perhaps they will think this way because they will have just wiped out all false religious organizations on earth. So they might reason that if God existed, surely he would defend the institutions, let me go through past all the pictures here, all the institutions that claim to represent him. They will not realize that it was actually God who put the thought into their hearts to get rid of religions that have so grossly misrepresented him. And they reference here Revelation 17. And we'll have a link about that later. Sometime after false religion is devastated, Jehovah may well have his people deliver a hard-hitting message, one that the book of Revelation likens to a hailstorm, in which each hailstone weighs about 45 pounds. This is all according to the footnote in Revelation 16:21 of their study Bible. This message, possibly a declaration that the political and commercial system is about to end, torments the hearers to such a degree that they blaspheme God. Likely it is this message that provokes the nations into making an all-out assault on God's people to silence us once and for all. They will think that we are defenseless, an easy target to destroy. What a mistake that will be.
You know, what I notice is all these times where they say, Jehovah may well do this, likely, perhaps, possibly, all those kinds of phrases, watch for them. Because that's when it's just their own imagination going wild and speculating on what's going to happen.
Notice there's almost nothing from the text.
Yeah.
There is the idea of Jehovah putting hooks in the jaws of Gog of Magog.
Yeah.
But nothing about the context, which is to say that all of this is, in their speculation at least, is the opposite of what the text says. That is, God's putting the hooks in the jaws. I will, he says, in their translation.
And then they say, well, it doesn't mean that.
Well, what does it mean? Well, it doesn't mean that Jehovah is overriding or overruling the free will of Gog, whoever he is, or any of the other participants in this scenario.
Yeah.
They can't have that. And there you realize that no matter what they say about promoting Jehovah's sovereignty, and remember the other Ezekiel book from the 1970s, which was about 3 times as big as this one in its text anyway. That book was very big on the idea of the vindication of God's name and his sovereignty. You
Yeah.
don't believe in Jehovah's sovereignty. You
Yeah.
believe man's will is free, truly free, which of course limits God's will.
Yeah.
As soon as you say everybody's a free agent and God doesn't interfere, therefore it can't be what it says, I will
Yeah.
put hooks. You've basically limited the sovereignty of God, just like you've limited his attributes in other ways.
And you've made the words meaningless. When he says, I will, no, he won't, according to you. He won't be the instigator behind this. It has to be reading hearts. So he doesn't know everything. This God doesn't know everything.
Yeah.
He has to kind of read the situation. He's like a great mathematician and okay, I think they're going to do this now. This is not God.
No, he's. I'm glad you brought up that comparison with mathematics. He's a super mathematician. He can make calculations based on information that comes to him, and that's what you have him doing here in this scenario. He's looking at the hearts of men, and he's not inclining them though.
Yeah.
And that seems to be contradicted what you say on the next page.
The next page they actually say, God who put the thought into their hearts. Well, is that a contradiction? You say he won't do that, and then you say, well, he will do that. In the case of Gog, I guess, anyways.
But of course, we're told by Paul, no less, that it is Jehovah, that is the Lord, who is putting into us both the Spirit, and the Spirit gives us not just the ability to do things, but the will to do them. So God is turning human wills, and if he didn't do that, we'd all be lost.
Yeah. And, you've got Bible examples of this. You've got Pharaoh's heart being hardened by God. It also says that Pharaoh's heart was hard, but it says God hardened it as well in the account.
So 37 or so years ago, when you decided not to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore, was that your decision?
I would never have left the witnesses. I was a wholehearted believer in what they were telling me. I believe it was God's intervention that overruled my will and opened my eyes. And I prayed for that. I prayed that God would help me understand what is truth and see it. But I wouldn't even have had those questions if it hadn't been for the fact that I was trying to rescue you out of leaving the Watchtower.
So God, when you look back, it was God who organized the events so that you would be forced to reconsider your assumptions, your faith.
Yeah.
And that's what he does for
and I'm
everyone.
grateful.
But the important thing here is who creates the faith? Is it you by accumulation of facts? This is the way God, you say here, this is what the organization says. God is looking at the way things are, and he's even reading human hearts, and he's making calculations. That's how he predicts the future.
Yeah.
But you're not allowing him to transgress a certain line, and you do that, of course, with yourselves when you're witnesses. You think that really you initiated it, and that, of course, generates the thought that it's up to you to stay in this faith. And if you by your will or by circumstances deflect from the way, you have to worry all the time that God, you're lost. You're lost because of what you did or what you thought.
You don't have a proper understanding of your own true character, for one thing. So you don't really have a need for God to actually intervene, because you really think you can accomplish all those things. You can work it out, and you can make a decision, and you can reason, which is all over this, reasoning your own reasoning, instead of letting God say what he wants to say.
And you can't believe the plain statements of Paul, quoting from the Old Testament, by the way, in Romans chapter 3, when he says that there's not one that seeks after God.
Yeah.
So if God doesn't come seeking after you and lining up things in your life to challenge you and provoke you, you will not be saved.
Your estimate of yourself is too high, and your understanding of God and Christ is too low.
Yeah. No, we should say something.
We become sovereign and God is just reacting to us.
Yeah, he's countering our moves sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
with most people, he's not even bothering to do that. He's letting them go their own way and just giving them information occasionally through Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah.
I don't think we should let pass by, though, their comments about Babylon here. They don't call it Babylon, interestingly, although they refer to a whole bunch of texts that do.
Yeah.
They're talking about false religion, false religious organizations. That idea is all over the place.
Yeah.
Here. So this part is pure fantasy because
Yeah.
none of it is in Ezekiel 38 or 39. In fact, there's nothing at all about religion in Ezekiel 38, 39. It's about a land and an invasion.
And a people.
So reread it. I think we should challenge everybody here to reread
Ezekiel.
those chapters and see if you see any of this scenario.
So 38 and 39, right?
That's the protection we have, which is God has given us a text. The text will tell you what you need to know without all of this speculation.
Compare it to this paragraph of fantasy.
Yeah, what's the link we chose?
We've chosen a Babylon the Great playlist, but we'll put up one that's specifically about what is Babylon the Great.
In the book of Revelation, we have 6 videos in that
Yeah.
playlist that are about what the book of Revelation says about Babylon the Great. And
Yeah.
it starts with the chapter they choose here, Revelation 17. Check that one out, and the other 5 will be linked directly.
Right.
And then the playlist,
Right.
which is a lot bigger than 6 videos.
Right.
See you next time.
Bye.